Yeah, I'll see you all in hell, truly remember that. Every one of you, I'll see you in hell.
We're in the city of Springfield, where we delve into the horrifying details of the Berkshire triple murder trial that gripped the nation. Hell's Angel member Caius Veiovis, along with his accomplices, stands accused of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and witness intimidation. The trial, which took place in Hampton Superior Court, revealed the gruesome acts committed by Veiovis and his accomplices. He was charged with first-degree murder, witness intimidation, and kidnapping. In the dark underbelly of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, a series of heinous crimes unfolded that would forever stain the community. The name that would become synonymous with terror and brutality was Caius Veiovis. This is the chilling story of his crimes and the shocking events that led to his conviction. It all began in the summer of 2011 when three men, David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell, mysteriously vanished without a trace. Their sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, leaving friends and family desperate for answers. As the days turned into weeks, the truth behind their fate slowly unraveled. It was revealed that these three innocent souls had fallen victim to a trio of cold-blooded members of the Hells Angels Club, led by none other than Caius Veiovis himself. The timeline of events leading up to the gruesome discovery of their dismembered bodies in Becket is a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. In the early hours of August 28, 2011, Veiovis, along with his accomplices Adam Lee Hall and David Chalou, descended upon Edward Frampton's Pittsfield home. Under the cover of darkness, they forcibly abducted Glasser, Frampton, and Chadwell, snatching them from their lives and thrusting them into a nightmare from which they would never awaken. The unsuspecting victims were then transported to an undisclosed location where they would meet their tragic end. As the days turned into nights, the families of the missing men were left in a state of agonizing uncertainty. Their worst fears were confirmed when the remains of Glasser, Frampton, and Chadwell were discovered in a remote area of Becket, their bodies gruesomely dismembered. The shockwaves reverberated throughout the community, leaving residents in a state of disbelief. How could such unspeakable acts be committed in their own backyard? The answer lay in the twisted minds of Veiovis, Hall, and Chalou, who had orchestrated this macabre plot with chilling precision. The investigation into the Berkshire triple murder quickly gained momentum, with law enforcement agencies working tirelessly to bring the perpetrators to justice. The case was eventually moved to Hampton Superior Court, as defense lawyers argued that the extensive publicity in Berkshire County would hinder the selection of an impartial jury.
The Commonwealth has never been able to find the scene of these killings, and therefore I expect there will be no evidence or testimony connecting Mr. Veiovis to the location or locations where these crimes occurred.
The trial that followed was a harrowing journey into the depths of human darkness. The prosecution meticulously presented the evidence against Veiovis, Hall, and Chalou, painting a vivid picture of their malevolence. Witnesses took the stand, recounting the horrifying details of the victims' final moments, and the jury was left with no doubt as to the guilt of the accused. The courtroom was filled with an air of anticipation as the trial of Caius Veiovis, the mastermind behind the Berkshire triple murder, unfolded. The prosecution presented a compelling case, meticulously piecing together the evidence that would ultimately seal Veiovis's fate. Witnesses took the stand, their voices trembling as they recounted the horrors they had witnessed. Their testimonies painted a vivid picture of the chilling events that unfolded on that fateful night in August 2011. The jury listened intently, their eyes fixed on the accused, as the truth behind the crimes was laid bare. The prosecution argued that Veiovis, along with his co-defendants Adam Lee Hall and David Chalou, had meticulously planned and executed the abduction and murder of David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell. The motive behind these heinous acts remained shrouded in darkness, but the evidence presented left no doubt as to the guilt of the accused. However, Veiovis maintained he had no hands in the incident.
Let me make this clear one more time before I sit down. My hand was not in this, all right? My hand wasn't in this.
As the trial progressed, the defense fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. They questioned the credibility of the witnesses, attempting to poke holes in their testimonies. But the weight of the evidence against Veiovis was overwhelming, and the defense's efforts fell short. The jury, comprised of individuals from various walks of life, listened attentively to the arguments presented by both sides. They meticulously examined the evidence, considering every detail before reaching their verdict. After 37 hours of deliberation, the moment of truth arrived. Guilty.
That this was committed with deliberate premeditation. So say you, Mr. Foreperson, was this the verdict of the jury? Yes.
Veiovis's reaction was one of pure rage. He lashed out at the jury, his voice filled with venom as he shouted, "I'll see you all in hell. Remember that. Every one of you. I'll see you all in hell." It was a chilling display of the darkness that resided within him.
Yeah, I'll see you all in hell, truly remember that. Every See you in hell.
The families of the victims, who had endured the pain and anguish of losing their loved ones, found some solace in the guilty verdict. Berkshire District Attorney David F. Capeless expressed his satisfaction, stating that they had never wavered in their belief that justice would be served. Capeless acknowledged the immense toll the trial had taken on the families and friends of Glasser, Frampton, and Chadwell. He hoped that the guilty verdicts would bring some semblance of closure, although he knew it could never fully assuage their grief. Defense lawyer James G. Reardon Jr., while disappointed with the outcome, respected the jury's decision. He expressed his confidence in the American jury system, even as he prepared for an automatic appeal under state law. Reardon believed that there were important legal issues surrounding the circumstantial evidence that could potentially impact the case. As the trial came to a close, the community was left to grapple with the aftermath of the shocking events that had unfolded. The scars left by Veiovis and his accomplices would forever be etched in the collective memory of Pittsfield. Veiovis's co-defendants, Adam Lee Hall and David Shalhoub, had already been convicted in separate trials and were serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. The trio's reign of terror had come to an end, but the impact of their actions would be felt for years to come. His sentencing was scheduled, and the murder convictions carried a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a fitting punishment for the atrocities he had committed, ensuring that he would never walk free again. As the courtroom emptied, the families of the victims were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The wounds inflicted by Veiovis and his accomplices would never fully heal, but they could finally find solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. Join us in the next part of this series as we delve deeper into the motives behind these horrific crimes, the impact on the community, and the legacy left by Caius Veiovis and his co-defendants. Brace yourself for a story that will leave you questioning the depths of human darkness. As the dust settled after the trial of Caius Veiovis, the community of Pittsfield was left to grapple with the aftermath of the shocking crimes that had unfolded. The impact of Veiovis's actions would forever be etched in the collective memory of the town, leaving scars that would never fade. For the families and friends of David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell, the guilty verdict brought a bittersweet sense of closure. While justice had been served, the pain of their loss would never truly dissipate. The void left by their loved ones could never be filled, and the grief they carried would be a lifelong burden. Berkshire District Attorney David F. Capeless, who had tirelessly pursued justice for the victims, expressed his hope that the guilty verdicts would bring an end to the constant reminder of the tragedy for the families. He acknowledged that while it could never assuage their grief, it was a step toward closure. The impact of the crimes committed by Veiovis and his accomplices extended far beyond the immediate circle of the victims' families. The entire community was left reeling from the shock of the gruesome details that emerged during the trial. Pittsfield, once a tight-knit town, now grappled with a sense of unease and mistrust. Take your seat at the Superior Court of Quebec, where the leader of the notorious Hells Angels, Boucher's reign of terror sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld and beyond, uncovering the shocking truth behind his involvement in the shooting deaths of 2 prison guards. The Hells Angel leader was charged with first-degree murder, as well as attempted murder. In the gritty streets of Montreal, a young man named Maurice Boucher was destined for infamy. Born in the 1950s, Boucher's journey into the criminal underworld began at an early age. As a teenager, he found solace and a sense of belonging within the notorious biker gang, the Hells Angels. Boucher quickly rose through the ranks, displaying a cunning and ruthless nature that earned him respect and fear among his peers. His charisma and leadership skills were unmatched, making him a natural choice to lead the Montreal chapter of the Hells Angels. With Boucher at the helm, the Hells Angels became a force to be reckoned with. Their criminal activities ranged from drug trafficking to extortion, leaving a trail of violence and chaos in their wake. Boucher's strategic mind and ability to navigate the treacherous world of organized crime propelled him to the top of the criminal hierarchy. Under Boucher's command, the Hells Angels expanded their influence, establishing a stronghold in the Montreal underworld. Their power extended beyond the city limits, reaching into other provinces and even across international borders. Boucher's iron grip on the biker gang allowed him to amass wealth and control over various criminal enterprises. But it wasn't just money and power that drove Boucher. He had a reputation to uphold, and he did so with a ferocity that struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Boucher's violent nature and willingness to resort to extreme measures earned him a fearsome nickname, the Godfather of the Quebec Hells Angels. The Godfather ruled with an iron fist, demanding loyalty and unwavering obedience from his subordinates. Those who dared to cross him were met with swift and brutal consequences. Boucher's reign of terror was marked by a series of high-profile crimes, each one more audacious than the last. In the late 80s and 90s, another motorcycle club called the Rock Machine competed with the Hells Angels for control of the street-level narcotics trade in Quebec. The Quebec Quebec Biker War saw the Rock Machine ally with many other organizations to face the Hells Angels. During this intense war between the Hells Angels and the Rock Machine, Boucher ordered the murders of 2 random Quebec correctional officers, Diane Levine and Pierre Rondeau. This was all because of a plan hatched up by Boucher because he wanted crimes committed by bikers that would be so serious that prosecutors would not want to make deals to turn bikers into informants. The crimes committed by Maurice Boucher and his Hells Angels cohorts sent shockwaves through the nation, prompting a relentless pursuit of justice. The authorities were determined to bring down the man who had terrorized the streets of Montreal for far too long. In 1998, a jury acquitted Boucher of having ordered those murders.
He won the first round. The jury in Boucher's original trial found him not guilty. The laughing wouldn't last.
He was then closely followed by the police. In 2000, an appeals court dismissed the earlier acquittal, and he was arrested again. He was convicted of the murders with the help of a police informer in May 2002. As the evidence mounted and the case against Boucher grew stronger, the stage was set for a trial that would captivate the nation. The crimes and sentencing of Maurice Boucher would become a symbol of the fight against organized crime, a battle between good and evil that would test the limits of the justice system. The Crown attorney prosecuting Boucher, France Charbonneau, claimed that she regularly received death threats, just showing how much influence Boucher had. The nation was left in shock as the details of the heinous crime emerged. The brutality and callousness of the act sent a chilling message to anyone who dared to oppose Boucher and his Hells Angels empire. The authorities wasted no time in launching a full-scale investigation, determined to bring those responsible to justice. The evidence against Boucher and his associates was overwhelming, and the case against them grew stronger with each passing day. As the trial approached, the nation held its breath, eager to see justice served. The courtroom became a battleground, with the prosecution presenting a mountain of evidence against Boucher and his co-conspirators. The overwhelming evidence against Boucher proved too much to overcome. The jury, faced with the weight of the crimes committed, delivered a verdict that would forever alter the course of Boucher's life. The key witness for the prosecution was Stéphane Gahn, nicknamed Godas, who was involved in both murders. He testified that Boucher ordered him to carry out the killings and was later congratulated by Boucher himself. Another one of his henchman, Serge Boutin, cut a deal with the Crown where he plea bargained to pleading guilty to manslaughter and serving 7 years in prison in exchange for testifying against Boucher. Maurice Boucher was found guilty on multiple charges, including the murders of the prison guards. The courtroom erupted in applause as justice was finally served, and the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. The sentencing phase of the trial was equally intense, as the prosecution sought the harshest punishment for Boucher and his accomplices. The judge, faced with the responsibility of determining their fate, listened to impassioned arguments from both sides. In the end, the judge handed down a sentence that reflected the severity of the crimes committed. Boucher and his co-conspirators were to spend the rest of their lives behind bars, ensuring that they would never again pose a threat to society. After 11 days of deliberation by the jury, Boucher was found guilty of 1 count of attempted murder and 2 counts of first-degree murder on the 5th of May 2002. Boucher displayed no emotion as the verdict was announced. He received an automatic life sentence with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years. The crimes and sentencing of Maurice Boucher marked a turning point in the fight against organized crime. It was a victory for law enforcement and a testament to the resilience of the justice system. However, the conviction of Maurice Boucher had a profound impact on the perception of the Hells Angels and organized crime as a whole. The public, once fascinated by the mystique and allure of the biker gang, now saw them for what they truly were, a ruthless criminal organization.
He would spend the rest of his days in prison, but still plugged into organized crime. In fact, still ordering murders. In 2018, he had another 10 years tacked on to a life sentence.
The media played a crucial role in shaping this narrative, exposing the dark underbelly of the Hells Angels and shedding light on their criminal activities. Documentaries, news reports, and investigative journalism brought the truth to the forefront, leaving no room for romanticized notions of outlaw bikers. The impact of Boucher's conviction extended beyond the Hells Angels themselves. It served as a wake-up call for law enforcement agencies across the country, prompting them to reevaluate their strategies and tactics in the fight against organized crime. Task forces were formed, dedicated to dismantling criminal organizations and disrupting their operations. The battle against the Hells Angels became a top priority, with resources and manpower allocated to bring down those who sought to fill the void left by Boucher. The legacy of Maurice Boucher and the Hells Angels continues to shape the criminal landscape to this day. While the gang may have faced setbacks and internal conflicts, their presence and influence cannot be underestimated. The story of Maurice Boucher serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers posed imposed by organized crime and the relentless pursuit of power. It is a story of violence, greed, and the consequences that come with crossing the line. According to reports, throughout his imprisonment, Boucher strongly desired revenge against his former outlaws, should he ever be released, whom he regards as having betrayed him. Other revelations included a cancer diagnosis and long periods spent in solitary confinement. On the 10th of July 2022, La Presse reported that Boucher died while receiving palliative care for throat cancer at age 69. We're going all the way across the Atlantic to Berlin, Germany, for the sentencing of the Hells Angels Berlin leader Kadir Padir and several others. We'll be exploring the chilling crimes and subsequent sentencing of Kadir Padir, a prominent member of the notorious Hells Angels motorcycle gang who was charged with joint murder and incitement to murder. This tale of violence and justice will leave you astounded as we uncover the shocking details surrounding the murder of 26-year-old Tahir Ozbek. From the calculated execution-style attack to the brazen lack of remorse displayed by Padir and his fellow gang members, this story will send shivers down your spine. In the seedy underbelly of Berlin's criminal underworld, one name struck fear into the hearts of both law enforcement and rival gangs alike: Kadir Padir. Born into a world of violence and chaos, Padir's journey into the dark realm of organized crime began at an early age. Growing up in a rough neighborhood, Padir was exposed to the harsh realities of life from the start. With limited opportunities and a lack of positive role models, he found solace and a sense of belonging within the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. It was here that Padir's true potential for violence and ruthlessness began to emerge. The Hells Angels, known for their fierce loyalty and criminal activities, provided Padir with the perfect breeding ground for his criminal ambitions. He quickly rose through the ranks, earning the respect and admiration of his fellow gang members. With his imposing stature and a reputation for brutality, Padir became a force to be reckoned with. As his influence within the gang grew, so did his involvement in various criminal enterprises. From drug trafficking to extortion, Padir's criminal empire expanded, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The Hells Angels provided him with a sense of power and control that he had never experienced before. But it wasn't just Padir's criminal activities that set him apart. He possessed a cunning intellect and a knack for manipulation that made him a formidable leader. He knew how to exploit the weaknesses of others and used fear as a tool to maintain his dominance within the gang. With his rise to power, Padir became a symbol of fear and authority within the Hells Angels. His name alone was enough to strike terror into the hearts of those who dared to cross him. But it wasn't just his fellow gang members who felt the wrath of Padir's fury. Innocent civilians who found themselves caught in the crossfire of the Hells Angels' criminal activities also suffered at his hands. Padir showed no remorse for the collateral damage caused by his actions, viewing it as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of the gang. However, Padir's luck would eventually run out. The murder of Tahir Ozbek would prove to be the turning point in his criminal career. The brazen and calculated nature of the crime caught the attention of both the police and the public, leading to a high-profile trial that would expose the true extent of Padir's crimes.
In Berliner Gerichtssälen geben Richter gegenüber organisierten Kriminellen immer wieder klein bei. Feixend und lachend wie verhaltensauffällige Schüler.
The murder of Tahir Ozbek sent shockwaves through the city of Berlin, leaving its residents in a state of fear and disbelief. The brutal nature of the crime, reminiscent of a cold-blooded execution, left no doubt that this was a premeditated act of violence. As the trial unfolded, the evidence presented painted a chilling picture of the events that unfolded on that tragic day. On the day of the murder, Tahir Ozbek, a 26-year-old man with his whole life ahead of him, entered the betting shop hoping to play some cards with his friends. He left his protective vest, which he usually wears when he goes out, at home that evening. But he has the 7.65 mm Zastava pistol with him, as he usually has since he heard that the Hells Angels are trying to kill him. The security cameras captured every chilling moment, providing a haunting record of the crime that was about to unfold. In a matter of seconds, the tranquility of the betting shop was shattered by the sound of gunshots. Kadir Padir and his accomplices unleashed a hail of bullets, firing a total of 8 shots at Tahir Ozbek. The sheer speed and precision of the attack left no doubt that this was a carefully planned and executed act of violence. The security camera footage presented during the trial was nothing short of horrifying. It showed Tahir Ozbek, who did not have time to draw his weapon when the attacker came to his table. Everything happens very quickly. The black-clad shooter fires 8 bullets in just 5 seconds, 6 of which hit Ozbek in the upper body. The brutality of the attack was evident as he fell to the ground, lifeless. The callousness and lack of remorse displayed by Padir and his fellow gang members were truly disturbing. unfolding, but the shocking details of the crime did not end there. After the murder, instead of fleeing the scene, Padir and his accomplices calmly left the betting shop and went to a nearby burger restaurant to enjoy a meal. Their brazenness and complete disregard for human life were beyond comprehension. Reports showed that the murder could have either been a personal beef or a fight for territory.
Der Vorsitzende hat ausgeführt, dass es eine Gemengelage von einer persönlichen Fehde, aber auch Auseinandersetzungen sozusagen das Revier gegangen sei.
The evidence presented during the trial left no doubt as to the guilt of Qadir Padir and his fellow Hells Angels members. Witnesses testified to the calculated and ruthless nature of the attack, providing chilling accounts of the events that unfolded on that fateful day. The security camera footage served as undeniable proof of their involvement in the murder. The defense attempted to argue that there was no concrete evidence linking Padir to the crime, but the overwhelming evidence against him proved otherwise. Apparently, the investigators also cited that the pre-planned murder by the Hells Angels was known by the police officials, but they did not act on the information.
Zumal wir hier in einem Fall sind, wo zahlreiche Polizeibeamtinnen und Beamte Bescheid wussten über die geplante Tötung und rein gar nichts unternommen haben, um das Opfer zu schützen. Und das ist für die Eltern, für die Geschwister des Getöteten bitter.
The prosecution meticulously presented the facts, leaving the courtroom in stunned silence. The jury, faced with the undeniable truth, had no choice but to deliver a verdict that reflected the severity of the crime. As the trial reached its climax, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The families and friends of Tahir Ozbek, desperate for justice, held their breath as the judge delivered the verdict. Qadir Padir and his fellow Hells Angels members were found guilty of the murder, and the judge handed down a sentence that reflected the heinous nature of their crime.
Hören die Angeklagten später dann das Urteil. 7-mal lebenslänglich wegen gemeinschaftlichen Mordes.
Padir was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would never again walk the streets as a free man. His accomplices also received lengthy prison sentences, serving as a stark reminder that the consequences of their actions would be felt for years to come. The sentencing brought a sense of closure to the family and friends of Tahir Ozbek, but it also served as a stark reminder of the dangers posed by organized crime. The trial exposed the true extent of Padir's criminal activities and the devastating impact they had on the lives of those around him. The trial of Qadir Padir and his fellow Hells Angels members may have come to an end, but the impact of their crimes continued to reverberate throughout the community. The shocking details that emerged during the trial shed light on the dark underbelly of organized crime and served as a wake-up call for society. The sentencing of Qadir Padir to life in prison without the possibility of parole brought a sense of justice to the family and friends of Tahir Ozbek. It was a small victory in the face of unimaginable loss. However, the scars left by Padir's reign of terror would never fully heal. The trial had a profound impact on the community, forcing them to confront the reality of organized crime and the devastating consequences it can have. It served as a stark reminder that no one is immune to the reach of criminal organizations, and that the fight against them must be relentless. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome courtroom videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.